Hello, Karen.
Hi, Savan.
I'm very pleased to be talking with you today.
Me too.
So, if you want to tell us who you are, what you do, just to give us a little bit of context.
Okay. So, previously to what I do now, I've worked with corporates like IBM and Oracle and professional firms like Investec Bank and Grant Thornton and tech startups. For the last 18 years, I've been working in social enterprise. And what that means is I like working with people who want to start businesses to change the world. And I spend most of my time doing that through the Cambridge University Judge Business School, where
Mhm.
we run an incubator, and it's for people who aren't just Cambridge graduates.
Mhm. So, you know the context, and we've got that pandemic, that lovely year 2020, with full of surprises, and we had been warned for a long time that our system wouldn't be able to cope with a global event of that kind. And we needed to be prepared. I mean, these sound bites came all over the place, and yet a lot of us, a lot of institutions, a lot of businesses, a lot of individuals were not prepared, didn't prepare. So rolling forward a few months, we're at the end of the year now, 2020. Some of us had pressing pause and started to reflect on what happened, and some others are already stepping into action, whatever that action is. So I would like to pause with you for a second and and ask you about this. Like, do we need to be repairing something or build a new system altogether? Is it about repairing or building something totally new?
Well, I guess I would say it's somewhere in between. And that's probably because at heart, I'm always an and person rather than an or person.
Yeah.
And the thing about or is it tells you that you can either do one or the other. Whereas if you say and, there's like this smudge of a spectrum in between the options, and suddenly everything is possible.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think we need to take where we are now and say what brought us here. And the same path isn't going to take us to the next space, but we need to move on holding everything that brought us to this place to find the next thing that will help us change.
Mm-hmm. So, uh, but what constitute repairing and building anew in your line of work?
So I was thinking I look at social entrepreneurs who at a social problem,
Uh,
which might be anchored in one stream of thought. So an example is the alternative school. So Kirsty came at what everyone else saw as a problem, which is children who were excluded in 2007. Well,
mhm,
before that, and said, well, how do I help these children get educated? She wasn't a teacher, so she didn't have all that education stuff. And she started running a Friday afternoon class that was like a youth group escape space.
yeah.
And then she discovered as the class grew that she was actually running a school. So she had to get certified as an independent school. She then went on to study as a head teacher. So to me, she came with the repairing the system, but also building something new because she wove into the current education system and then brought in her experience and then brought in new stuff from other spaces. She'd worked in business, so she brought in approaches that management uses. And
Mhm.
so it's this focusing on the people who are affected and working with the systems that are around them, which will entail repairing, but will always entail building something new out of that.
So that kind of incremental new, and
Yes.
then bringing new incremental change. And what's in the way of that type of intervention at the moment?
I think a lot of people do get stuck in the or mode where they go, well, we either do this or we do that. And often you could do
Mm,
absolutely anything. And I think the more fearful we are, the more likely we are to polarize things. So we've seen that. We've seen polarization of people around all sorts of issues. And
mm,
that's based in fear, where they have to go, well, it's my way or your way, but it can't be anything in between. And
mm.
actually, I think it's like you were saying, taking a breath, thinking, what if we just took where we are now and looked forward? And how can we create something between now and there?
So the question on my lips is, what do you do with people who don't bulge and who hold power?
Well, I think that's where social innovators are so interesting because they are those unique people that are able to operate in that space between. So they come at a problem, and
Mhm,
there's some entrenched people, often as public service or it's charities who are entrenched in the social issue.
mhm,
And sometimes it's even businesses that are all entrenched. And social entrepreneurs kind of operate in that gap in between. And they're able to think there and say, when you collide different things and you disrupt, something new can happen and we can actually shift it. And they have to be brave enough to hold the line, I think, and brave enough to stick their necks up. And so the more we can support those kind of people, the better.
So I know, Karen, that you've got some magic in your toolbox that you bring with social entrepreneurs, as in you talk with them about their strengths. So you really make come in the open all the strength that they have, and also sometimes they don't even realize that they could operate from these strengths. Can you tell us more about that?
Well, I love using the Gallup Clifton tool, which allows people to do this assessment. But
Mhm,
it's because what are our strengths are the things that we're in the flow in. They're the things that come naturally to us and the natural ways we think and feel about things. And
mhm,
because we naturally think and feel that way, we think everybody else does. And what I love about the Strengths Finder is it actually has this kind of aha moment where the person reads them and goes, well, yeah, this is me. This is, well, what's so special about this? You're just describing me. And then I go and I say, well, meet Servan, and this is Servan's strengths. And then I love it when they say, how can they possibly think like that? You actually believe that? And the
yeah.
other person's doing the same thing. I've even seen it where I had someone who was spatially either advantaged or challenged because he was an architect. And he asked people the same question, but he put his head on a different side to hear the answer differently because he simply couldn't believe that someone else could think so differently from him. And so the
Mm,
Strength Finder gives people the tools to know how brilliant they are,
mhm.
also to know how unique everyone is, and it also starts to give them the language to convince other people. So what I have
Oh,
found is some people's behavior, like these people who are stuck, don't want to change,
mhm,
that behavior doesn't necessarily represent any one strength because they might just prefer consistency because they know that doing things the same way every time is fair. They don't intuitively want to be mean or stuck or anything because they're not trying to disadvantage someone. They're actually trying to make what they see as fair. And so if you start to look at it and go, well, okay, with that mindset, how do I help them understand that being fair might not look like they expect it to look like? How might I focus on another strength of theirs? They also might be stuck in that space because they're used to being in charge.
mhm.
And
And they no longer
suddenly,
are. Yeah, yeah,
yes,
yeah.
and so they're just hanging on to being in charge. They might
Be-
they might just be disagreeing with you because they've got high competition, which means everything is a win-lose situation. So they
Right,
definitely don't get the and thinking. It's always like you win or I win. And what you have to then convince them is you're on the same team. And so when you win, they win.
right. This is so insightful, Karen. That's the magic. But that means that people need to be very much aware of other people's strengths as well.
Yes.
That's a huge work, especially in that rebuilding work that or repairing work that we want to do.
Well, Gallup were quite helpful with this because they've got, I think, 22 million people worldwide who've done the Strength Finder,
Yeah, they
which is
know this
quite
stuff.
useful.
Yeah.
And I started out literally every team I was on, I said, let's just share our strengths because then you'll understand why I like strengths and you'll understand why you do this. And it is just a 45-minute test. It's only £20, so it's really easy for people to do.
Mm,
So it's a sneaky way for me because one of my strengths is called achiever, which means I love to get stuff done.
yes.
And and what's nice about the strengths is it goes, so in order to make you do what helps me get my thing done, I need to tick this box for you. And so the strengths gives me that insight. And I have found all the entrepreneurs that I've shared the Strengths Finder with, they go, okay, so then I have to know what my team's strengths are because then I can help them do their job better. I can help them shine, and then my business will work.
Yes. Win-win situation or win-win-win situation. So in the auxiliary for repair or building anew, we need more empathy, more conversations. the acceptance that we're all different and then we see the world differently.
Yes.
So that's a good start. Is that what you advise people to do, Monday morning, 8 a.m. when they're going to, start on their next Zoom meeting with their team? What else do you
What I
encourage
think
people to do in a very pragmatic way?
What I think people might do is, this is a time for us to pause. So a lot of us have time given back to us. We're no longer commuting. I know people often work when they commute, but I found there was headspace in commuting, and my work has just absorbed that. So I think taking that back and saying, actually,
Mm,
there are hidden moments of time right now that we will never get again. Well, yes,
mm,
we would rather be at the pub or sitting by the river having a drink with friends. We can't do that right now. So take advantage of that.
take
And
it
I was
back. Okay.
thinking,
Yeah.
why don't people think about, is there something that you've always wanted to do but felt that it wouldn't fit into your life as it is today?
Yeah.
And try thinking of it in this and way. So not everyone who does teaching is a teacher. Not everyone who cares for children is a parent. Not everyone who cares for sick people is a doctor or a nurse. And not everyone who feeds people are chefs. You could do all sorts of things. You could be on boards, you could be a school governor, you could be a part-time, respite carer offering fostering care over weekends. You could find
Mm.
projects, you could do a
Or
first aid
design
course.
design better buildings where these kids are
Yeah.
learning. Yeah, yeah.
You could do all sorts of things that are taking where you are now and the possibility of you doing something else. And just try and reconnect with those things that you thought, "Oh, I'd love to do that, but now I'm a mom, I can't. Or now I've got this busy management job, I can't." I'm sure there would be people you can connect to, Facebook groups you can go to, WhatsApp groups you can join
Or what have you? Yeah, yeah.
that are doing
So
something in that space.
so reclaim your commuting time. Look at your strengths. Don't be a but person, but an and person, and engage with your empathy hat on. Is that what I've
Yeah,
heard? Cool.
yeah.
Thank you so much. That was brilliantly pragmatic, you know, fantastic, spot on. Thank you so much, Karen.
It's a pleasure. Thank you, Savan.